There is a name on your family tree that somebody, somewhere, spent centuries trying to protect. Not a first name, the other one, the one you sign on documents, the one you inherited without ever being asked whether you wanted it. Italy has more surnames than any country on earth, over 350,000 of them. Most of them came from a trade, a village, a nickname shouted across a field. But a small number of them came from somewhere else entirely. They came from the fortresses. They came from the throne rooms. They came from the families who ruled the Italian peninsula for 900 years, and whose blood still sits in the veins of reigning monarchs in Madrid and London. Here is what nobody explains to you. In January of 1564, the Council of Trent ordered every parish priest in Italy to write down the name of every soul he baptized. That decree is the reason your family can be traced at all. But it also froze something in place. It locked ordinary families and ruling dynasties into the same ledgers under the same names, and it left behind a puzzle that historians are still untangling. A surname is a clue, not a verdict. It can pass through a bloodline, or through a vassal who served that bloodline, or through a village that belonged to it. But every clue points somewhere. And in Italy, 10 of them point directly at a crown. We are counting down 10 Italian surnames carried by the royal and ruling dynasties of the peninsula. The higher the number climbs, the closer the crown gets. And number 1 is the name that ruled Italy itself, until the country voted it out of existence. Stay to the end, because the last name on this list still has a living heir. Number 10. Malatesta. In the 13th century, the hills of the Romagna belonged to whoever could hold them, and the man who held them was called Malatesta da Verrucchio. He switched sides in the Great War between the Pope and the Emperor, crushed his rivals in Rimini, and made himself sole master of the city. He lived past 100 years old. Dante Alighieri wrote him into the Inferno and called him the Old Mastiff of Verrucchio, a beast who had torn his enemies apart and gone on gnawing the bones. That was only the beginning. Dante put the family in hell twice. The second time was for Gianciotto Malatesta, who discovered his wife Francesca in the arms of his own brother Paolo and killed them both. That murder became the most famous love story in Italian literature, written by a poet who knew the family personally. But the Malatesta who terrified Europe was Sigismondo Pandolfo, Lord of Rimini from 1432. A soldier at 16, a poet, a builder who hired Leon Battista Alberti to wrap a medieval church in a Roman triumphal arch and turn it into the Tempio Malatestiano, a temple to himself and the woman he loved. Pope Pius II could not defeat him on the battlefield. So in April of 1462, the Pope did something no Pope had done before or since. He held a ceremony of canonization in reverse. He declared a living man damned. 3 effigies of Sigismondo were burned in the streets of Rome, each carrying the same placard, calling him the king of traitors and the enemy of God. Only one man in the entire history of the Church has ever been canonized into hell. He carried your name. If your name is Malatesta, your bloodline carries the Mastiff of Rimini. Number 9. Doria. Genoa was not a kingdom. Genoa was a shark tank, a republic of merchant princes who ran the banks of half of Europe and the fleets of the entire western Mediterranean. And 4 families sat at the top of it. The Doria were one of them. The name was already ancient when a soldier named Andrea Doria was born in 1466. Orphaned young, a mercenary in the Papal Guard, he was 46 years old and had never commanded a ship in his life when Genoa handed him a fleet. He rebuilt that fleet from nothing. He hunted the Barbary corsairs. He fought for France until France insulted him. And then, he did the single most consequential thing anyone in Genoa has ever done. In 1528, Andrea Doria walked away from the King of France, took his ships to Emperor Charles V, drove the French garrison out of his own city, and handed Genoa back to itself. The city was his. He could have taken the crown. Every man who marched with him expected it. He refused. He refused the lordship of Genoa, and he refused the office of Doge. Instead, he rewrote the constitution, dismantled the factions that had bled the Republic for 2 centuries, and accepted one single title carved into stone across the city: Liberator and Father of the Fatherland. Charles V made him Prince of Melfi and Grand Admiral of the Mediterranean. He put to sea again at 84 to hunt pirates. He died in 1560, in his own palace, at 93 years old, having outlived every enemy he ever made. If your name is Doria, your bloodline carries the admirals of Genoa. Number 8. Gonzaga, on the 16th of August, 1328. An old man of 60 walked into the palace of the ruling family of Mantua with his 3 sons and every armed man he could gather. His name was Luigi Gonzaga. He had been a loyal officer of the Bonacolsi lords for years. That morning, he stopped being loyal. By nightfall, the last Bonacolsi ruler was dead in the street. The treasury was in Gonzaga hands, and the crowd in the square was shouting Luigi's name. The Gonzaga would hold Mantua for the next 380 years. They understood something the Malatesta never did. Power that is stolen must be made legal, and legality can be purchased. In 1433, Gianfrancesco Gonzaga paid Emperor Sigismund 120,000 gold florins for the title Marquis of Mantua. A century later, Charles V made Federico II a duke. And then came the marriages. The Gonzaga married Isabella d'Este, the woman contemporaries called the First Lady of the Renaissance, and Mantua became a court that Andrea Mantegna painted, and Rubens served and Monteverdi wrote for. They married into the Habsburgs and produced 2 empresses of the Holy Roman Empire. They put a Gonzaga daughter on the throne of Poland. They even produced a saint. Not bad for a family of provincial officials who murdered their way into a palace on an August morning. If your name is Gonzaga, your bloodline carries the Dukes of Mantua. Now, everything from here on carries a crown, a papal throne, or a bloodline still reigning in Europe today. If you want to see which surname ends up on the throne of Italy itself, subscribe now, because the top 7 get significantly harder to believe. Number 7. Colonna. Rome in the Middle Ages did not belong to the Pope. It belonged to 2 families, and they hated each other with a violence that reshaped the church. The Orsini and the Colonna. On the 7th of September, 1303, Sciarra Colonna rode into the town of Anagni with a French agent and a few hundred men. The reigning Pope, Boniface VIII, had tried to destroy the Colonna, seize their castles, and erase them from Rome. He was in his summer palace when Sciarra kicked the doors in. They dragged the Pope out. And according to the witnesses, Sciarra Colonna struck the Vicar of Christ across the face. The locals freed Boniface after 3 days. He was dead within a month. Historians still mark the outrage of Anagni as the moment the medieval papacy broke, and the popes fled to Avignon. Now here is what makes the Colonna extraordinary. They did not just survive that. They won. In 1417, Adon Colonna was elected Pope Martin V. He healed the Great Schism, brought the papacy home to Rome, and ruled the church from the Colonna Palace. 150 years after that, Marcantonio Colonna commanded the papal fleet at the Battle of Lepanto on the 7th of October, 1571, when the Holy League broke the Ottoman navy and changed the map of the Mediterranean. The Malatesta are gone. The Visconti are gone. The Medici are gone. The Colonna are still here. They still live in Palazzo Colonna in Rome, and they still hold the hereditary dignity of Prince Assistant to the papal throne. If your name is Colonna, your bloodline carries the barons of Rome. Number 6. Farnese. For 300 years, the Farnese were nobodies. Minor landholders in the hills of Upper Lazio, running errands for bigger families, marrying carefully, waiting. Then, Alessandro Farnese was elected Pope Paul III in 1534, and the waiting ended. He convened the Council of Trent. He approved the founding of the Jesuits. He excommunicated Henry VIII of England. And then, in August of 1545, he signed a bull that tore the cities of Parma and Piacenza out of the Papal States and handed them to his own illegitimate son, Pier Luigi, as a hereditary duchy. The Borgia Pope had tried to do exactly that for his family and failed. Paul III succeeded. In one signature, a family of country barons became sovereign princes. The nobles of Piacenza murdered Pier Luigi 2 years later. It did not matter. The Farnese held. His grandson, another Alessandro, became the finest general in Europe, commanding the armies of Spain and the Netherlands, and reconquering half the Low Countries for the Spanish crown. But the final move was made by a woman. In 1714, Elisabetta Farnese married Philip V, King of Spain. She was cunning, relentless, and she spent her entire reign maneuvering thrones under her sons. One of them became King of Spain, which means the Farnese blood never left. It is in the Spanish royal family today. If your name is Farnese, your bloodline carries the Dukes of Parma. Number 5. Este. Almost every dynasty on this list clawed its way up from somewhere. The Este did not. The Este were already there. Their ancestors were the Obertegni, margraves documented in northern Italy in the 10th century, when most of the great houses of Europe did not yet exist. Around the year 1030, a man named Albert Azzo II built a castle at Este, near Padua, and took the castle's name as his own. He lived, according to the chroniclers, to be over 100. He had a son named Guelph. That son went north. He inherited his mother's German lands. And in 1070, he became Duke of Bavaria. His descendants took the name of the House of Guelph, and they became the great rival dynasty of the Holy Roman Empire, Dukes of Saxony, Dukes of Brunswick, and eventually the Electors of Hanover. And in 1714, the Elector of Hanover crossed the Channel and was crowned George I, King of Great Britain. The Hanoverian kings of England descend, in the direct male line, from an Italian castle on a hill near Padua. Meanwhile, the Italian branch stayed home and built Ferrara into one of the most brilliant courts in Europe, ruling Ferrara, Modena, and Reggio for over 500 years, patronizing Ariosto and Tasso, until the male line finally ended in 1803. If your name is Este, your bloodline carries the oldest crown in Europe. Number 4. Visconti. There is a serpent on the badge of every car that rolls out of Milan. A blue snake, coiled upright, with a human figure in its jaws. Milan has worn it for 700 years, and it does not belong to the city. It belongs to a family. In 1277, the Archbishop Ottone Visconti destroyed the rival house of Della Torre at the Battle of Desio and took Milan for his blood. And for the next 170 years, the Visconti expanded like a fever, city by city: Bergamo, Brescia, Cremona, Verona, Bologna, Pisa, Siena. The greatest of them was Gian Galeazzo. He seized power from his own uncle in a staged ambush, imprisoned him, and had him poisoned. Then he did something no Italian lord had ever done. He bought a crown. In 1395, Gian Galeazzo Visconti paid Wenceslaus, king of the Romans, 100,000 gold florins for a piece of parchment that made him Duke of Milan, and made his family sovereign forever. He laid the first stone of the Duomo of Milan. He built the Certosa di Pavia. He held Florence by the throat, and he was one campaign away from unifying northern Italy under a single crown when a fever killed him in 1402. It all came apart. And when the last Visconti Duke died in 1447, with no legitimate son, the serpent passed to a man whose grandfather had been a farmer. If your name is Visconti, your bloodline carries the serpent of Milan. Number 3. Sforza. In the fields outside Cotignola, Sometime around 1382, a 13-year-old boy walked away from his father's farm and joined a mercenary company. He was strong, unnaturally strong. His captain watched him fight and gave him a nickname that meant force. In Italian, Sforza, Muzio attendo lo Sforza, became one of the most feared soldiers in Italy. But it was his son Francesco who understood what to do with a sword. Francesco Sforza fought for the last Visconti Duke of Milan, and then he married the Duke's daughter, Bianca Maria. When the Duke died in 1447, leaving no legitimate male heir, Milan declared itself a republic. Francesco Sforza besieged the city and starved it until it opened the gates. In 1450, the son of a peasant walked into Milan and was proclaimed Duke. The serpent was his. Under his descendants, Milan became the richest court in Europe. Ludovico Sforza, called Il Moro, brought a Florentine engineer to his court to build war machines and paint a wall in a monastery dining hall. The engineer's name was Leonardo da Vinci. The wall became the Last Supper, and the fiercest of them all was a woman, Caterina Sforza, who held the fortress of Forel against Cesare Borgia and the armies of the Pope, who fought hand-to-hand when the walls fell, and who was called the Tigress by men who could not break her. Her grandson would become the first Grand Duke of Tuscany, and his family name is number 2 on this list. If your name is Sforza, your bloodline carries the force that took Milan. Number 2. Medici. They were not nobles. They were not soldiers. They sold wool. And then in 1397, Giovanni di Bicci de' Medici opened a bank, and his family quietly became the bankers of the papacy. Money moved to Rome, and influence moved back to Florence. And in 1434, Cosimo de' Medici returned from exile to a city that would never again make a decision without asking him first. They never called themselves kings. They did not need to. They funded Brunelleschi's dome. They put Botticelli, Michelangelo, and Donatello to work. Lorenzo the Magnificent ran Florence like a private empire and paid for the Renaissance out of his own accounts. Then they took the church. Lorenzo's son became Pope Leo X. His cousin became Pope Clement VII. 2 Medici on the throne of St. Peter within a decade. Then they took France. Catherine de' Medici married a French king and ruled that kingdom in all but name for 30 years, through 3 of her sons. Marie de' Medici married another and ruled as regent after his assassination. And finally, they took a crown of their own. In August of 1569, Pope Pius V signed a bull elevating Cosimo I to Grand Duke of Tuscany, a rank that had never existed in Italy before. Wool merchants had become sovereign princes. The line ended in 1737 with Gian Gaston dying in a filthy bed. But his sister Anna Maria Luisa signed one last document, the Family Pact, which willed every painting, every statue, every treasure the Medici ever owned to the city of Florence, on the condition that nothing ever leave it. That is why the Uffizi still exists. She gave it to you. If your name is Medici, your bloodline carries the crown that bought the Renaissance. Number 1. Savoia. Around the year 1003, in the cold valleys of the Western Alps, a minor count appears in the imperial records. Nobody is certain where he came from. The chroniclers call him Humbert the White-Handed. He owned nothing that mattered except the mountain passes. And that turned out to be everything. Every merchant, every army, every emperor who wanted to cross between France and Italy had to go through his gates and pay his price. For 900 years, the House of Savoy did not conquer. It waited, it married, and it collected. Count, then Duke of Savoy, in 1416. Then, in 1720, King of Sardinia, and the family that started with a toll road on a mountain was finally wearing a crown. And then they took the whole peninsula. Piedmont built the army. Piedmont fought Austria. And on the 17th of March, 1861, Victor Emmanuel II of Savoy was proclaimed King of Italy, the first man to rule a united Italian kingdom since the fall of Rome. Every other house on this list had ruled a city, a duchy, a province. The Savoia ruled the nation for 85 years. Then came the war, and the fascists, and the ruin. And in June of 1946, the Italian people were handed a ballot, and they voted the monarchy out of existence. The last king walked onto a plane and never came home. The Republic did not stop there. They wrote a clause into the Constitution of Italy forbidding the male heirs of the House of Savoy from setting foot on Italian soil. 900 years of dynasty, exiled by law. That clause was not lifted until the year 2002. There is still an heir. He is still alive, and he still has no throne. If your name is Savoia, your bloodline carries the crown of Italy itself. If your name is Savoia or Savoy, say it in the comments, and tell us which name on this list came closest to your own. Then subscribe, because the next bloodline we uncover might be the one hiding inside your family name.